This morning, I watched and reviewed my sermon from Sunday about understanding that the natural life, the things that we go through in the natural life, are to establish our spirit and lead us to a more perfected spiritual life. Was listening to it, I was thinking about the fact that over years I have discovered that that people when they come to the Lord, they they come and experience, I would call, joy or gladness. People think that joy is something that, well, it's a thing, and actually joy comes from the possession of something good or the knowledge of something pleasant. The the Christian's joy is simply gladness in knowing Christ and his possessions of such God and Savior. It says we do not really understand, but we rejoice in the Lord, because the Lord is the thing that causes our joy. But I've watched young Christians and not so young Christians. They go through, well, as a pastor, you see them go through different stages. Um, one of the things that happens, the first thing is that once someone comes to Christ, they begin their walk joyfully. They're so encouraged, and they're so freed from the bondages that had them. They begin to walk with joy, and the joy of God, and the soul begins to delight, and everything in our Christian life seems to prosper. But then as the soul advances in the divine life, there often comes the stage of desolation, where Christians seem to pass through the wilderness, and they seem to have trouble or suffer. And it may be the loss of things, both inward and outward. And in this period of what we call desolation, the Christian has to faithfully transverse it. And then they're finally come out on the other side, the stage of an unaltered and an unalterable joy and gladness in God. Maybe in the wilderness stage, everything has been lost, and all may be found in God. The only danger is that the soul in the wilderness stage should faint and fail under the stress of desolation and isolation, and should turn back to the flesh for its joy. This wilderness is filled with bodies of frustrated saints. And I've seen many frustrated saints that start off with joy and the goodness of God, and then they hit this time of wilderness. Hopefully, that the soul, sooner or later, will come through this to the place of everlasting joy. If the only path it lies through wilderness, then so be it. We will welcome the wilderness and traverse it with cheerful faith. We must learn to have our joy in the Lord and rejoice in Him when all else in heaven and earth seem to fail. We must learn to rejoice in God and into God alone. Just God. Simply Him. Not because of what He promises or what He gives, but who He is. Philippians says, rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say, rejoice. And that's how we must live our life.